Hi, I'm Corey.
Hi, I'm Tess.
Welcome to A Lovely Place.
We're so glad you've joined us as we invite Jesus into the midst of our lives, learning, and laughter.
We hope this podcast can encourage your heart and make you smile today.
Hi, Tess.
Hello, Corey. We are here again.
We are here again, and I'm just thankful that we keep showing up
Right?
and being here. And I just thank you to those who are listening and have been with us and journeying with A Lovely Place podcast.
Yes. It has been lovely. This is like, we've been doing it for like a year and a half now.
I know.
Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh.
Congratulations, us.
So we are on, I think this is our 8th book. Is that right? I think it might be, but we're starting a new book. We just finished Famous at Home, which was so good. And now we are starting Find Your People by Jenny Allen.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as I've been like praying and just talking to God this week, it feels like it makes so much sense, like, for these books to go together. And I haven't quite figured out exactly why yet, but it feels like it's kind of, I have this picture of me like on a hike and I'm getting higher in elevation and God's like holding my hand and like, okay, step here. Look out for that. Like, and it just feels like he's kind of putting that all together, which I appreciate because I like clear communication, and it feels like he's being clear.
Yeah, we had talked about this book because I remember buying it for my birthday. So it's been in the waiting for a little while, and I've been in anticipation of it. But I was holding off reading it until we were done reading Famous at Home because I was like, I'm going to just get them all mushed together. And now I feel like I'm devouring. Did we say the name yet? Jenny Allen, Finding Your People? Okay, good. I was listening. I got hung up on what book this was. Anyways, I just am excited. Like you're saying, it's like one more puzzle piece of this life that we're living. Because God makes a lovely place with us, right? He's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And there's some cool podcasts, episodes on Candace Cameron Bure podcast with Tara Lee Cobble. I'll write a note. We'll link that because they were talking about the Trinity, and it was just so cool how they were breaking it down because Tara Lee is so smart.
Right.
Anyways, but we're made for relationships.
Yeah.
And yet relationships are difficult and challenging and can be hurtful and lovely, all mushed together. So it's confusing, and I think that tension causes a lot of people to pull back.
Yes, I agree.
And I was like, all right, we're going to push into this.
Right?
Jesus, help us, please.
It's uncomfortable at times.
I need help.
Yeah, I like what Jenny says. She says people make up the best parts of life and people make up the most painful parts of life. And it reminds me of the saying that we always talk about in our restoration groups, I think from Mending the Soul, but we are hurt in relationship, we heal in relationship. You know that healing can't happen without other people. But so the premise of this book is that right now our world is lonely. And that's not meaning like the whole world, obviously, because she talks about a good percentage of the world still lives in very close-knit community. Yeah. But that in our American culture, that we are very lonely. I think she was saying that 3 in 5 people say that they experience chronic loneliness, or whatever word she used there.
Yeah.
Which I can relate to. I can identify with that. I think that I don't know. I'm like working through some feelings about, we moved in December. We moved so that we could have a larger house for our kids to have their own bedrooms, because that was becoming a struggle. But she, at the beginning of the chapter, she says, we fill a small little crevice called home with everything we could possibly need. We keep our doors locked tight and we feel all safe and sound. But we've completely cut ourselves off from people outside our little self-protective world. And she was talking about how loneliness is actually worse for us than obesity, lack of physical activity, like all of those things for our health. And I don't know. I've been just kind of praying, like, God, what are you trying to say to me in this? Because we prayed a lot about moving and where, what house we wanted. But it's just one of those like re-examining, moments where it's like, okay, were you actually the one like wanting us to do that? Or was it just me asking for that? And you were like, sure, I'll give you what you're asking for, but who knows? Like, it reminds me of a story of the Israelites where they asked God, when they were asking God for a king, and he was like, this isn't how I designed you. Like, I'm supposed to be your leader. And they were like, well, we want a king because everyone else has a king. And he's like, okay, I'll give you a king. And then it went so badly. So I'm like, was that one of those moments where I was asking for this? And God's like, well, I'll give it to you, So I don't know. I think this book is just kind of really causing me to re-evaluate some things, which I think is why I'm reading it, right? But it feels like, oh, so it's scary.
Well, and then I think not getting hung up on the four walls we've chosen to live in. Like, this is talking about a bigger picture community, right? Like,
yeah.
Just because you could all go to your own rooms and live there, most of the time we gather where we're at together, like, so even, I don't know, there's that tension of that. But I remember in the Philippines, the families would just be all together, most of the time sleeping all in one room. And so you were just together, and you pick the coolest part of the house and sleep as best you can in that hot humidity, like, so there is that little, like, I don't know, it makes me think of like puppy dogs, like we're all just all together. Like,
or have you ever watched the movie The Croods?
No, but I think I've heard it. But
it's really funny. But then there's the second one. So they're cavemen or whatever, and so they all just sleep in their sleeping pile. That's what they call it. They're like all stuck together. And in the second one, they go and they find these people who have like a house, like, crazy, but they stay with them and they're like, oh, you're going to sleep in this room. You're going to sleep in that room. You're over here. And you see this montage of them like in their rooms, just like, what do I do? Like, where's the sleeping pile?
How does this work?
It's hilarious. I love that movie. But it reminds me of that. It's like that. We're just lonely then. I mean, I do appreciate having my own room, though.
It's like,
I don't sleep so well in the same room as my kids.
No, it's a little different. And I don't, I guess we would figure that out if we were in a different culture. But anyways, we're not supposed to be this lonely. Like, I just like that it was like, this isn't the plan. Like, lonely isn't the plan. Like,
right?
Like, okay, relationships are the plan. And I like that Jenny Allen started the book with her testimony of her own struggle while she was writing this book. And she's like, all right, this person's mad at me and this person's mad at me and it's all my fault. And I've just been hiding in my room writing the book, like, so I'm just like, isn't that an interesting tension of, even if you're writing about relationships, keeping them and fostering them and
right.
Like, and then what's the expectation? I don't know, like in Grace, I don't know where all those lines come to be, but I was like, oh man.
And I think sometimes you think too that if someone has written about something or, like that they're like the expert on it. And I think that's what she's saying is I'm not the expert. I'm just writing this. And I love how she approaches that because it reminds me, I've still been praying about writing a book and like trying to figure out what that is all about. But I felt like I was I was listening to the Bible recap the other day, and Tara Lee was saying something about how in the Psalms, you see David and some of the other psalmists, they will complain and be like, God, where are you? And questioning and things like that. But then she said they always end it with preaching to themselves. Like,
Yeah.
but this is what's true. And that reminded me of this is kind of like, maybe this is Jenny's way of preaching to herself. And I was like, is
Yeah.
that kind of a book that I'm supposed to be on the journey of, is preaching to myself? Like, I haven't mastered this thing yet, but here I am telling myself what I need to remember and know.
Yeah.
And that resonated, like, I don't have to be the expert.
Right. Well, and I heard it one time, write the book that yourself 5 years ago needed.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, well, man, she needed a lot.
Right.
And then I'm like, and now I'm glad there's other friends writing books so then I can have them right now. Cause
right.
Yeah. And then like we were at a birthday party for one of Riker's friends, like we're moving from classmate to friend level. And so he was like, yeah, I would go to that birthday party or whatever. And then there was a couple other moms that stayed at the party. So we were talking, and the one mom was teaching at the school also. And she just was remembering like the culture of the Homelink program before the pandemic was totally different. And then it just tanked, like it just was like everybody's literally in your home and out. So we're coming out of that globally, even, I think, right? Not just in America, but just that affects how it's trickling down. And now we're in 2023 and it's still an interesting thing. Like, I feel like we're forever changed, and hopefully in good ways too, of like how we value people more, maybe because it was taken away so interestingly, or I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but
yes, I think that does make sense.
Yeah, just like trying to be like, okay, what do we do? And maybe now it's that is in another way.
Yeah.
Or
well, and I really like, I don't know, I identified with what she was saying. She says, and yet it's hard to need people, because she's talking about how we really do need other people. She said, no, it's terrifying to need people. Because sometimes when we acknowledge our need, we feel like there is no one who wants to take our call in the middle of the mess. Or at least that's what I believe in the moment. And at one point, I think maybe in this chapter or in the introduction, she was talking about her friend that always calls her as she's ugly crying, And she was like, I always just feel like honor in those moments that she, like, sees me as a person who will want to be there and in the ugly crying, in the mess, and she was talking about how she's the kind of person that's like, I'll process it for a day or so and cry by myself. And then once I've like kind of gathered myself, then I will call someone, and I was like, I definitely feel most of the time like that person, because sometimes when I'm in the mess, it's like, I don't even know if I think to call someone. It's just like, what's happening,
Yeah.
But I want to be better at that, like letting people in. But it can be shameful sometimes, when it feels like maybe I'm the only person that is having this hard of a time or like struggling with this thing. And so sometimes it feels difficult to call and like, actually let people into that.
Yeah. But I've read a few text messages from you that are saying otherwise. So I appreciate that we can have some of that in our relationship.
Yes.
I know before we started recording, I was praying that this friendship that we have is treasured, but then also realizing because we live so far apart, we need to have other people in our, so like it's easy for me to text you and tell you what's going on, but then there is that like I miss like, oh, she can't come here right now,
right?
like it's like And then I can't go to your house and be like, oh, let me take the kids to the park really quick and you can chill out. Like
Right?
it's not.
I know.
So it's an interesting tension of because we can only hold so many close relationships
Right.
too. But so I liked how she was breaking it down. Acquaintances, a village is where she was feeling like we're missing it, and then our 2 to 5 close friends.
Yeah.
And just and I think it was releasing to me too of we need more people to fill these spots.
Yeah.
And it can't be one person.
Right.
That's not how it's meant to be.
Right. Well, and it reminds me, my pastor Elizabeth yesterday was Mother's Day. So she was preaching about from Proverbs 31 and talking about the women of valor or courage is what, even though it's some things interpret it as women of good character, but it's like women of courage or valor. And she was saying that it's like a poem meant to be memorized by the men in that culture. And it's not like a checklist of things that one woman should try to be all of those things. But she was saying that we can celebrate all of the different women that are represented in that poem. And, like women who are well prepared, women who are compassionate, women who make things beautiful, like all of these other things. And it just makes me think like, that can't be one person. Just as we can't be that one person, we can't expect a friend to be that one person. Like we need friends, different friends to fill different spaces and weaknesses that we have. And then we need, to be that friend to other people because they need what we have. So
yeah,
I love that God created us that way. But I think it's easy sometimes to get in the zone of like, I can just do this all by myself. Like I've got it,
Yeah.
And then you come crashing down like, no, I really don't.
I don't have it all together and I can't go to the grocery store and we're done. Nobody's going to eat. Go to your room.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, and then it kind of makes me think of Kendra's book, Kendra Adachi, in her Lazy Genius way, when she was like, let's stop apologizing for our messes and invite people in. And if we invite people over for some snacks or dinner and it ends up being more like a snack and not dinner, let that go. People can go home and eat more food if they're still hungry. Like the point was to build relationship and community and like having that be a welcome space. Like, so then I try to think of that still. And then like my parents were coming over last night we were spontaneously having a barbecue. Cause I don't always like to plan everything. I'm like, but then later after I had a nap, I was like, oh, what if we did have dinner and have people over? And then it was like, oh, I'm just going to make the food we're going to eat and not worry about the table hasn't been all the way cleared off and the floor wasn't swept in a couple days. And it looks like Cookie Monster
like you live there.
It does.
Not that you're Cookie Monster.
No, but that's what we were teasing about on the phone, my mom and I. Like, it's like Cookie Monster. And food is everywhere. So I was just trying to let that go and embrace the
letting people into your mess.
Yeah, my literal mess too, not just my emotional mess, right?
But we're whole people. Like maybe it's freeing if you can let people into your actual mess to be able to let them into your emotional mess,
Yeah.
It's all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Oh my goodness. Well, so that reminds me just of, so Jenny Allen, she says, we live alone, we eat alone, we run our errands alone, and we suffer alone.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of this verse that finally came to mind for me in Acts 2:42, which says, all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer.
Yeah.
And it goes on to continue like talking about what they were doing. Well, actually, I'll just read it. It says, a deep sense of awe came over them all. This is New Living Translation. And the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders, and all the believers met together in one place, and they shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. I think I've been one of those people who, like, I've talked with some of my friends that we used to get together with like every other week in Hillsboro, our home group. And I'm like, we should just go live all together, like on a farm or something, and have like a commune, you know?
Yeah.
Because it sounds really nice. And I know my brain is like, yeah, but you know, it's not going to be like all sunshine and daisies, right? Like there's, you live with people, there are issues the same way that there are with family, but I love and have always yearned for this idea of just sharing life with people and not doing it alone, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm excited to continue diving into this book and learning more about that and being challenged. Because she did say, she warned us, right? What did she say? And she said, everything I'll be asking of you in our journey together requires that you risk your comfort and your routines. And yet everything in your life aches for the change. The change I am inviting you to experience, because I am convinced that we have been going about this all wrong. So I'm excited for this journey of this book and getting to read through it with you and share with anyone who might be listening. You know, we pray that our conversations can, just as they encourage us and help us to learn and grow, that they would do the same for anybody that listens. So,
yes. Amen. That we can find a lovely place with Jesus and with people around us, near and far.
Yes.
Because we need, it's not like you have to not be friends with people because you moved away. Like, it's not what we're saying, but just, yeah. Anyways, let's find people to eat with.
Yes.
Yeah. Not good. Emotionally eating, but just eating.
All right. Thank you, friend.
Thanks, friend. Bye.
Bye.